True travel with impact. GINI transforms tourism from extraction to regeneration by creating impact journeys and experiences. With this podcast, I'll bring you true stories that bridge heritage, culture, and connection, inspired by my own Indian, Surinamese, and Dutch roots. Through my personal journey, I've learned that not all stories make it into the history books. Some voices are silenced and cultures erased. I'm here to change that. Alright, let's dive in. In today's episode, I'll share how my Indian, Surinamese, and Dutch roots influence my daily life and how it connects to the Dutch colonial trade routes and why I founded GINI. So, I'm born and raised here in the Netherlands, in southwest of the Netherlands, called Zeeuws-Vlaanderen, in a small village with approximately 3,000 people, with a total of 3 families of color. Well, you can imagine that growing up in a small village, which is also quite a monoculture, it's not easy being different. Like I have Indian, Surinamese, and Dutch roots, and I do have dark skin tone and curly hair, so that's not something you can walk around, right? So I learned at a very young age that I was different, because like when I was 4, like in the first class of primary school or whatever, kindergarten, I don't know, there was this guy, and I think in the end he actually liked me, but he didn't know how to express that very well. But he called me something like dark chocolate, and at that age I was really, at the time, not aware that I looked different. It was just that every time people said things like this, or I looked in a mirror, that I was like, oh yeah, I am a little bit different. So this dark chocolate remark of this dude, or kid at the time, actually really hit me. It was like, okay, but okay. So I remember going to my mom, talking about, this dude called me dark chocolate, blah, 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 blah. And I know that she went to the mother of this guy and had this conversation and was quite angry about it, actually, because I was really, really upset. So that's actually how it started, that, I noticed I was a little bit different. So at a young age, I had the pressure to fit in, hiding parts of myself. For instance, my curly hair, which I do very much like at the moment, but back then it was like a little bit shameful because it was always frizzy. My parents, they did their best, but they actually didn't know how to take good care of it. And it's also not like there were many families of color that could maybe teach how to take care of curly hair or black hair or afro hair or whatever you want to call it. So I always had frizzy hair, very curly hair, and I know that at a young age I saw everyone being blonde, everyone having straight hair. People sometimes laughing at like the flyaway hairs, but I'm not sure if they were laughing, but at that age, that was how I perceived it. So I hid it and I put like my hair back in a tight bun, so no one would see that. But of course, my skin color, I cannot take that off. It's not like a jacket you can put on or something, right? And I also remembered that at a young age, my dad had like a foster mom and she went to church. I'm not sure, 100% sure what religion, but I know I joined and I really enjoyed it. Like we waved some flags, we danced, we ate, we actually had like fun. But at that age I didn't know what religion was. I myself and my parents didn't believe in anything specific, so to say. So I'm quite atheist, so to say. I'm like spiritual, but not. I don't personally believe in a certain religion to be true. I take out of religion everything that I can like learn from it, but not like very strict or something. But religion shaped like my worldview. So that was mostly Christianity and mostly Protestant Christianity. And also my village where I grew up was is still quite Reformed Christianity, if I'm correct. And I remember going to secondary school, where I must say that the religion lessons we had there, because it was a Christian school, they had like 2 separate classes of religion, like Protestant and Catholic. But during these lessons, they not only taught about like those specific religions, but also the other religions. So I must say that they did that very, very well and very objective. So not like judgmental or no, edited added things, but like really about just about the religion, the origins, and what the values were or something like that. So they did that very well. But I noticed also in the history lessons that we talked about a little bit about Black Death, a little bit about poverty in Europe, and then suddenly we went on the seas and we came back with all these resources, and suddenly we were rich, and it was thriving times and golden age and those kind of things. And at the time, I remember not being that much into school. I am well educated, but I wasn't that busy with school at the time. I was kind of living my life, surviving through all the struggles, so to say. And this actually, didn't. At the time, I knew like, okay, something doesn't add up here, but it's also not something that really interests me. So whatever, you know. So that was like, those were like the seeds that I had growing up, and I was, at a young age, conscious about being different, but very unconscious about the inequalities happening to me, or my mother, for that matter. So let's talk racism and discrimination, because I feel not everyone really understands the difference between discrimination for example, having red hair, or like racism just because of your skin tone or religion or whatever. Because people of color experience different kind of things, like in education, in the job market, even in love life. So I will share like a little bit about what I've experienced, and let's go back to like my primary school. I remember in the Netherlands, the schooling system is like this, that's in group 8, so when you're 12, you do this big test, and based on that test, your whole future is like, kind of like, set. Like, okay, that is apparently your level of education, and from that you move, right? And like, there are certain levels, and one is more practical, one more applied, the other one is maybe even more scientific or whatever. So this test was really a big deal. And I remember at that age that I really had some struggles at home, like we moved, and it was really a hard time. We even moved to a like a house, like a social housing thing, but there was no floor, so we literally lied on like concrete with our sleeping mats and those kind of things. So it was a challenging time at home, and I'm not sure if like my school knew that, and I'm also not sure if I even like said something, or even whatever. But those were the circumstances, and they were not the best circumstances. But I did this test, and I did it actually very well. I scored very high, and that would have made me like go to VWO, as we say it here in the Netherlands. I'm not sure how you say that in other languages and schooling levels, but whatever. But that's like one of the highest things you can pursue. But the school decided to give me an advice to go to MAVO, and that's like a couple of levels lower, more practical education. And at the time I was a little bit angry, but also not like motivated, and I didn't know that it was an unfair system. I just knew like, okay, apparently this is it, and it's too bad because I had this score, so why put me in this class? Or no, I need to rectificate a little bit. I wasn't sent to MAVO directly. I was sent to a MAVO-HAVO class, so a mixed class between whatever. But the school knew that I wanted to become a veterinarian. That was like my little girl's dream. Like I was literally 3 years old, and I saw the farrier. I didn't know it was not a vet, but I saw a farrier going to the horses, and I was like, oh my God, I want to become that. Not knowing that it was like a farrier, but whatever. I wanted to become a veterinarian from a young age, and I like build a little bit up to that. But then you go to MAVO-HAVO school, and because of the circumstances at home, and not having school on my mind, I went to MAVO and I finished it. I finished it in a technical degree, so to say. So I was very, I'm quite analytical. I'm creative, but also quite analytical. So that's where I started. And it was only later, on which I will get back to you in a little bit, that I realized that this was a really unfair starting point for me, because actually the consequence of going to MAVO was that the veterinarian school it was possible, but it was not easily possible. So yeah, that was one thing. Another thing I would love to share is about my love life, because I also remember in secondary school that I had like this boyfriend that you held hands with and have walks and giggle a little bit, but not like nothing serious, but like for the first love, it's serious, right? And I remember this dude really. We both really liked each other, I think, but he never took me home, and I was like, okay, that's a little bit weird, but so I felt rejected, but I couldn't really name why I had that feeling. But in the end, we broke up, and not too long after that, the same guy got a girlfriend and took her home. And I was like, okay, but the only difference, well, of course there are more differences, but like the only difference is that this lady is blonde and white skinned. So that's a little bit weird, right? So that was like that stung. So for love life, I was like, okay, apparently I'm fun for like the short term, or like not real commitments, but yeah, so that's like the blueprint you get on love life. And honestly, also my parents didn't give me the most beautiful example of how love should be like. But luckily, at a little bit older age, I met my ex-boyfriend, and he was bright white, so to say. Like literally, if we were next to each other, it was really duo penalty, and it was literally duo penalty. But this guy, he was really smart. So not only he was smart, he was also well educated, and still from a religious family. But he was very well educated and also way more conscious about the unfairness that's not underrepresented, but like and also not minority. How do I want to phrase it? Like people that are not like the 1%. He was very conscious about that. So I remember we were in a relationship for almost 7 years or something. I remember almost every time there were elections, political elections, that we had this discussion. He was like, please please educate yourself on this topic because it's important. And also about women being able to vote, it's also quite special. So take your privilege in that. And I was like, oh my God, dude, don't worry me about these kind of things. I'm just doing whatever. And even voted on something. The time that I went voting because of him, I actually voted the opposite direction, not knowing what the implications were, because I wasn't educated well enough about politics. So that was like very interesting that like, the 1% guy, so to say, is way more conscious and way more handling this very much better. And I also remember as like one of the things we did was like watching movies and whatever. But there were 2 movies that I remember that we watched together and that I had a really weird feeling. And I think the first one was Django Unchained. And that movie was very heavy for me because like all the horrendous stuff that you saw in the movie, I couldn't just look at it, but I could really literally feel it in my body without having experienced any of those physical things, so to say. So that was not a good sensation, and it was really unsettling for me. And another movie we watched was, it was a series, was Dear White People. It was like I think, American series about like very educational, but also humoristic on like these things that Black people experience. And I remember him sometimes laughing about these things because they were really hilarious. But for me, it felt like not like he was attacking me, and also not like the movie was attacking me, but I wasn't conscious enough about all these things. So it really was like, oh my God, but this is not funny because I really experienced this. This is not funny. So those were like the seeds that were planted there in terms of that. And a last story I would love to share is about the job market, like inequalities on the job market. I've been full-time contracted and self-employed and currently founder of GINI and GINI Foundation chair. But I remember that on the job market, especially in the full-time contracts, it was not easy climbing like the stairs, or however you want to say it, like getting in a position a little bit higher, because I was very working very practical, and I wanted a little bit more being able to give strategic advice, so to say. So I remember having this job interview within my department, where like the interviewer asked somewhere along the way, totally out of the blue, and it was just like a small promotion. It was nothing really serious. It was not even not my dream job. It was just like a little bit more influence, quote unquote, about like how problem solving goes. And I think in terms of salary also almost nothing. So imagine that. And then this guy said, like, somewhere along the interview, like, are you looking for power? And I remember being very like, what the fuck? What did you ask? Like, how did this happen? And it was only later, after the conversation, that I was like, oh, but this was very inappropriate. And like today, the person I am today, I would like counter it with like such a weird, stupid question back that this person knows, like, okay, this was inappropriate to do. But that was like one of the things that I experienced in terms of job markets. So, so those are about like the systems around us, but there's also like in terms of racism, I've had experiences on the street that people are actually not behaving the same towards me than, for instance, to like maybe my white girlfriends, or maybe my sister, who's way more light skinned. She still has like a small skin tone, so to say, but she's way more light skinned. And this was even like last week or something. I was just walking somewhere in the village, and there was like a family walking in front of me. And I was like enough distance between us, like I couldn't catch up on them, but I didn't intend to, and I kept my distance. But still, I remember the mom looking back. She saw me, and suddenly they moved across the streets, and I didn't think anything about it, because I was like, okay, sure, maybe that's the way you need to go. But at the end destination, she was literally in front of me. So I was like, okay, so you crossed the street because you didn't want me walking behind you. That's like a little bit weird, right? And that's like a small thing. There are way bigger things, but I will not be like here for the sad stories. But like all these experiences sometimes make me feel, and I'm even like very, I'm brown skinned, so to say. I'm not even very dark. I'm also not very light. I'm literally in between. And also I have like, curly hair. It's just beautiful, right? Really wondering how this experience is if someone is even way more brown or black than me. Because if I experience this, then I can't imagine what they go through, right? Because I feel sometimes like people see me as a sort of zoo animal, whether that is about these weird things happening on the streets, people making noises, people how do you say this in English, like shouting very bad stuff to me, the N-words, making fart sounds or whatever. I don't know. I really don't understand that. But those are experiences I go through like every almost on a daily, honestly. And I'm not even, these are the light experience, so it's on a daily, and I'm used to it. But it's like, it makes me very conscious about my environment. And this also makes me like, when I'm in an environment that's a bit hostile like this, then I need to put on a mask or maybe a figurative shield to not get all those negative energies of other people, like not implement them in myself, you know? So actually, with all these experiences, it made me little by little more conscious about everything that is going on in the world, but also the things that people live through, especially people of color. So it started actually with like feminism and actually also not the kind of feminism that was actually, how do you say it? Actually feminist. Because it started with like nice girls don't get the corner office, talking about the inequalities on the job market, and that as a woman, you actually need to behave like a man to fit in and to get the corner office. But that's not feminism, right? But that was where it started. So don't judge my journeys. You need to start somewhere. And from there, I started to educate myself a little bit better. So I educated myself about feminism and the job market because those were the things at that time I was the most aware of and I had the most struggles from. But it was also about like the perception of money and wealth, because it was only like the generation of my grandmother that women were able to hold wealth themselves, like buy themselves a home, like not having to ask their husband for permission to buy a little bit more expensive stuff. So that's not that long ago. And of course, through this journey of feminism and the job market, I also came across the book of Joris Luyendijk, The Seven Ticks, explaining that there are certain seven ticks that people can have, that they are more or less privileged, so to say. So like being a heterosexual male, going to universities and more of that. So that was really where I started like, okay, there's something here, right? And then I started to dive into the black side inside of me a little bit more. So I remember Anousha Nzume having her book launched about Hallo, white schools, Hallo, witte scholen in Dutch. That was about the schooling system, the education system, and really explaining the inequalities that especially people of color experience in this system in like secondary school, but also higher education. And this is where it clicked with me. It was like, okay, but so indeed I got this high score in the CITO test, but got like advice on a lower level, and like my whole career path that I intended to do got like disrupted because of that. And not because I wasn't good enough or not smart enough, but because the system was basically fucking me. So yeah, there are really something hits. And I had like during this book launch, I said like, okay, but I also have like some friends, and sometimes I try to explain like the difference between racism and discrimination. But it's also for me at this point, and still today it is sometimes quite hard to explain. And actually she gave like a very good metaphor, like, okay, it is like if there's like a bucket that you need to throw in, and it's over here, like in front of the audience, and you have all these rows, and like the front row is for the male heterosexual white guys. Behind that are the heterosexual women, heterosexual women. And that you go all the way back to like also the different sexualities, different colors, different religions and whatever. And that by every row you go further to the back, it gets more difficult to throw in the bucket that is in front, right? So I think that explanation was really, really well on how institutional racism works. Well, this all made me deep dive into my roots, in my ancestors, and so a little bit in my roots and a little bit into spirituality, because I had like this struggle inside myself that, okay, I'm Indian, Dutch, Surinamese, and that means like Europe, South America, Africa, South Asia. So I was like, that's interesting, because that literally almost connects the whole world, right? So that's actually a gift, is what I'm here to conclude. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I dove into my roots, and let's start with my dad. He is Surinamese Dutch. He has a Surinamese dad. I'm not sure if he was what kind of how do you say it, heritage my granddad had, but he was African, so to say. But also my grandmother was Dutch, like white Dutch lady. And also the last name I hold, Scheele, it's actually a little bit of a shame name, because it means like squinting or googly eyes in Dutch. But it's also a privilege to have like this last name, because it's easier on the job market with a Dutch name than maybe an African name, so to say. But yeah, my dad, he was like brought up by my grandmother. His dad wasn't like in the picture, And also my dad had like, a mother that wasn't mentally well, like schizophrenia, and she couldn't take care of her kids. She had like my dad and my uncle is like born out of a Dutch man instead of a Surinamese man, so also a different skin color. So my dad was like, the brothers were like black and white, so that was also interesting. But also for my not mental well grandmother, the fact that my dad was black was also not like something she could easily accept. So my father actually went to a lot of foster homes, different people, different schools around identity, like black identity, not really someone close. So, of course, then you adapt to the environment and then you adapt like the white culture, right? So that's my dad's side. He's not really into like roots and heritage and embracing like both the black and the whites. That's inside him at this moment. Or I'm not sure because I cannot talk for him. But that's how I, as a daughter, think or feel that's as a daughter I feel it is. And my mom, she's from India, like born there until her sixth, lived there, but also in foster care and in foster homes, and not really well off, so to say. And there's not that much known about her background because we don't know if, for example, she was taken by the government or other entities, or if she was given away. But well, she ended up in the adoption system and she ended up being adopted to the Netherlands. And also on her adoption story, it's very interesting because as she remembers, there were like maybe 10, 15 Indian kids going into the plane, but not like the normal regular seats, but somewhere in the back, a little bit sneaky, la la. And also arriving at Schiphol, she remembers that all these kids didn't go out the normal way, but like to a back chamber, and that there were the foster parents, right? So actually also about adoption, I will talk a little bit more in another episode because I think that's also really interesting. But she was like, she was adopted. She went to like her first foster home, but they were like a little bit sad that she was a little bit older instead of a baby, and they also needed to pay a little bit more to have like an older kid than a baby. And yeah, this also, and of course, like my mom didn't have also the best background, so of course she had some mental issues, so to say. So this family couldn't hold her. So she was replaced to another foster home within the Netherlands. That was actually like a very good place for her, as I recall. But she ended up in a foster home in Zeeuws-Vlaanderen, where I'm born and raised. But that was not like the best foster home, so to say. So yeah, no, it wasn't good. But in the end, of course, my mom and dad, they met each other. They had a little bit, it's not the same, but they had like a little bit the same backgrounds, like in a very white environment with different color, with a very hostile youth, so to say. Well, they met each other, and here I am. But like, as I turned 4, they separated and went their whole lives. But that's not the point. The point was like, okay, so these are the backgrounds of my parents. This is my background, and I'm born out of these two people. But also two people that have been totally displaced from all of their cultures. Like my dad, of course, he's like Dutch as well, so he's connected to the Dutch culture, but he's not so connected to the Surinamese culture. And also my mother, she doesn't recall anything about India, so the only thing that is left in her visibly today is that she is actually like, she has a lot of accessories and she's quite creative, and though she says she's not, she's quite spiritual as well. So those are, I think, the gifts from the Indian side. But of course, with these two parents that aren't connected to all their cultures, for me as a kid, that also makes me like search for these identities. Like, okay, but for instance, like they are taking care of your hair, like, okay, how to do that? So I started YouTubing and those kind of things. But also like this struggle between, okay, am I black, am I white, am I Asian, what am I? And I was like, I felt like I was forced to choose one. So because my environment was white, then I adapted, and then I thought I was white until I had like a racist racist experience, and then I look in a mirror and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'm black. So those were struggles I had, and there was actually a turning point that I met the OMEC community. That's a community of bicultural professionals, mostly African diaspora. That there was like this, like this talk from Kimo Kamara, the founder, who said like, okay, but us biculturals, we are, we don't need to choose. You can be like all of the cultures. You don't need to choose. And actually, at that point, it really landed in me. So yes, I am white, I am black, but I'm also definitely Asian. Though also on the Asian side, I must say that I'm not, at the moment, not really connected to the Indian side that is inside of me as well. I'm aiming to get connected to that, of course. But it's not something that is like consciously in my mind. And also, if I'm thinking Asian, I'm thinking South Asian. And then I'm like, oh, no, wait, but I'm also Asian. And Pakistan people are also Asian. And West Asian people are also Asian. So those things are landing at the moment. But there's that. Because how I present black, of course. So if someone sees me on the street, I'm presented black. But honestly, I really feel like I'm also very European, so to say. So if someone asks like, okay, what are you? I'm saying like, I'm all of those backgrounds, but I'm also mostly European because I have the European mindset, mostly, not always, but mostly. And also I'm spoiled, so to say, because I remember like my South Asian friends that eat fish or something else and they just spit out the things that they don't want to eat, and I'm like still chewing on my food like, there are things in my mouth that don't belong there or something. Or with African food, that there's sometimes food that I usually don't eat, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat this. So sometimes I'm also like the spoiled European, right? But yeah, my story into my roots and ancestors was there. I started entrepreneurship because the job market wasn't really a fit for me, so to say. And actually, through my entrepreneurial journey, I learned that also all the challenges as on the job market, but also as an entrepreneur, that there were science-backed papers of the inequalities that especially female Black founders experience. So that was really like the OMEC experience and like the entrepreneurial journey really confirms like, okay, I'm not crazy. These are really just things happening. And it's not fair, but it's happening. So the entrepreneurial journey, it was also interesting because I'm in travel now and I started in life sciences. So yeah, how did that go? But first, about the roots still, I really had to unlearn a lot to embrace who I am today and also relearn a lot. As well with history and the knowledge I had, because one of the stories in the history lessons was like, oh yeah, Columbus found the Americas. That's like a narrative that goes around, right? Well, in fact, it was like the indigenous people saw some lost Europeans at sea. And what followed was the horrendous genocide of the indigenous, right? But those are not stories that are in our history books. Maybe they will get there, and I have good hope that education is like the first thing to go. But that was like the narrative that I also needed to relearn. Like, okay, but how did like the Europeans go there, and why did they move, and how did like the Africans go to Suriname? How did that go? How did slavery go? I really needed to learn about that. So yeah, that made me dive into the Dutch colonial trade routes. And of course, we traded and still do in some things, in sugar, coffee, tea, textiles, people, and all actually for grabbing on more wealth, more security, more whatever, more supremacy. I don't know why we do this. But there was a lot of migration and trade of people and of goods. And actually, one of the things that I find fascinating in the time that we live in now, it's 2025 now, Netherlands is quite divided nowadays, so to say. So, like there is one camp that is like pro-migration and there's one camp that is against it and other religions and whatever. So I'm not well, okay, I'm picking a side because that's just what works for me. But in this podcast, I will be like objective. But those are two camps that are going on now. And for the camp about like anti-migration, I'm really like, okay, if you are anti-migration, I disagree with that. But then if you are anti-migration, then you should be anti-trade as well. So I don't want you drinking coffee. I don't want to see you eating chocolate. I don't want to see you using a phone, because without cobalt, your phone wouldn't be live even. So those are the things that I think people really need to get aware of. So yeah, that's about like the Dutch colonial trade routes. And circling back to my roots, because I'm born in the Netherlands and I'm born in Terneuzen, Zeeuws-Vlaanderen. And actually, the city I was born in had also a big role in the colonial trade routes. It's not that common known, because like the harbor of Rotterdam is more known, or Middelburg is more known, but also the small city of Terneuzen is actually connected to this. And it's very, how do we say it, like very interesting, very curious that I'm exactly born in the middle point of where all these different people actually connect, right? So yeah, those are all the dualities that are inside me and things that I'm navigating and bring me to the person I am today. And even circling back to Zeeland, because Zeeland is also very interesting. Oh yeah, because Zeeland is also very interesting. Zeeuws-Vlaanderen specifically is like between Belgium and the Netherlands, and there's always this joke going on from the Dutch, like, oh yeah, the reserve Belgians, and from the Belgians, like, oh yeah, those weird people. And I must say, the Zeeuws-Vlamingen are very interesting people. They are very resilient, very stubborn, not that much open to outsiders, so to say. So they're very strict, very stubborn. But still, if we talk about roots, I'm also very proud to be a Zeeuw. And I really cannot explain how that works. But about the colonial trade routes, something that has been interesting, or not colonial trade routes, but about history. Zeeuws-Vlaanderen, because it was like a border part of the Netherlands, also played a big role in the 80-year war with Spain. So like between Spaniards and Dutch people, already trading in people, goods, and whatever. And that's still going on now because it's a border. So there's still a lot of illegal trade of illegal things. But also the stubbornness and like a little bit to the outsiders, that is like literally because they were in between Dutch and Spanish rule. So that's also like an interesting narrative of Zeeuws-Vlaanderen, I think. So yeah, all this, like my full journey of growing up, of having this experience of racism, discrimination, of the job market, my love life, my entrepreneurial journey, it ended with me birthing GINI, my travel company that I have at the moment. And yeah, GINI is really like the travel. It's not only travel. It's like a movement of cultural remembrance through travel with impact. So to say, so really challenging the colonial systems today, because tourism, in the traditional sense we do that, is really still very based on colonial narratives, and also really something I believe in, that if exploration and travel that we did in our colonial times had the power to, well, displace a lot of people and whatever, then it also has the power to take it back, to reverse it, right? So yeah, that's something that popped into my mind. So tourism is still like exploiting resources, people, culture, even environment, of course. And I will give some examples. One example is gentrification. That is like the displacement of the local people because prices go up. That's something that's happening here in the Netherlands, but also like there were these incidents in Barcelona that local people were really not happy with tourists because all the prices were unaffordable and people were forced out of their cities and to move into more rural areas or more cheap areas, right? And also, yeah, unfortunately, especially outside of Europe, and also in Europe actually, but there's still like exploitation of people, like modern slavery, so the people that need to clean the rooms, sometimes don't get fairly paid, but like the people that is holding like the big company is benefiting from all the tourism, but like the local people do not. So those are a few examples that I've seen, and I thought, okay, but this can be done differently. So I really see tourism and travel as a force for regeneration and reparations, but also as a tool for truth, like the re-educating people about the histories and the people and all those things. Because I don't think like the slavery part is explained very well. And also for like the bicultural people, especially the African people, African diaspora, I'm not sure if everyone at this point has the power to also look beyond the slavery. Not like to talk it good, but like, okay, before slavery, there were also all these civilizations and all these systems and all these beautiful connections to especially the earth and maybe the heavens, or however you want to call it, source, creator, I don't care, whatever you call it. Like there's this native power in African people that is also there. And I feel like especially the diaspora sometimes just stay stuck at slavery, and it's too bad and there's inequalities and I'm like not happy. But going beyond that pain and touching like the magic of your roots, that's something that's also very powerful. That's what I'm here to say today. So GINI is like here to serve like diasporic people, but also adopted people, make sure that the histories that have been erased are like reparated, and also the colonial systems are not repeated. So through GINI, I do that by offering impact trips and local experiences that are all like built on this 3-pillar impact model. Like the first thing is that there needs to be meaningful impact for the local communities you visit. The second thing is that local economies really need to benefit. So through GINI, that is like making sure at least 10% of the profits are reinvested in these communities. And in a later stage, this will be even more, because like, why can we feed that much cattle? Like really, we can feed a lot of cattle. There are more cattle than people in the world. But that's for like generating wealth, right? But we cannot feed all humans. That's weird. That means that the power of resources needs to be equally divided. And through like this kind of model, I really think that is doable. But also the third thing is like cultural remembrance. So the stories about especially the Black and the indigenous stories are not erased, but like told by the people themselves, and not like appropriated by people that don't have that lived experience or don't have that sense in their body, right? In the world that is as divided as it is today, I really believe we need more shared humanity. We really need more reconnection to the earth. And I really believe that especially the people that have been historically been displaced could be like the key to get back to that shared humanity, so that they go first, because they have lived through all that pain, all that horror, but also all that resilience that they hold. If those people really reconnect with who they are and what they are, and start standing in their power, I really think that the whole human race can hopefully be balanced back again. If my story resonates with you, please share it with someone. If you have a story to tell, please do not hesitate to share it, because you never know who's listening and who needs to hear your words. You can share it to me, to the world, or whatever, but really don't let it go and hurt. Alrighty, so yay, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope the lessons on embracing every part of who you are and knowing that your identity is your strength help you on your own journey. If you enjoyed this podcast, please head over to the show, hit follow, and rate it 5 stars. It really helps us reach more listeners. Thank you so much. See you soon.